All right. Welcome to today's WNBA Author Talk. My name is Julie Frey, and I am the member of the Greater Philadelphia chapter, and I serve as the WNBA's Communications Chair. We're lucky to have Susanne Tedrick, who is a member of the WNBA's New York City chapter, here with us today to discuss her career and her new book, Women of Color in Tech, a blueprint for inspiring and mentoring the next generation of technology innovators. Susanne is a cloud computing tech specialist at IBM, and she is a winner of the CompTIA's 2020 Diversity Technology Leader Spotlight Award for advocacy for increased diversity, equity, and inclusion in the tech industry. She is also the winner of a Technology Rising Star Award from the 2020 Women of Color in STEM Conference and a CompTIA's Association of Information Technology Professionals Rising Star of the Year Award in 2018. Her book has been awarded the Nonfiction Book Award Silver winner for from the Nonfiction Authors Association. And I saw yesterday on LinkedIn that she has just earned a new certification, so congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Welcome,
Thank you so much for having me, Julie.
We're so happy you could join us. A quick note, if you're joining us on Zoom, feel free to write any questions you have in the Q&A. If you're on Facebook, you can leave questions in the comments and I'll try to look at them at the end. So to get us started, Susanne, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I am a New York native. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. Traveled a little bit in Northern Virginia and Chicago for a bit. Prior to working at IBM, I actually worked in the financial services industry doing a lot of operations and administrative work. And literally no technical experience or formal technical training at that point. So just a very long but interesting and fun transition into the technology industry. Met a lot of wonderful and great people along the way, and using whatever influence and resources that I have to help other women and people of color in the technology industry.
That is a wonderful thing you're doing.
Thank you.
I think I read somewhere that you volunteer for Black Girls Code.
Yes, it's very near and dear to my heart. We do a lot of hands-on workshops with girls from the ages of 7 to 17, and we go over a number of different technology areas. So a workshop can concentrate on artificial intelligence, or another can concentrate on 3D printing and additive manufacturing. All of this to give girls of color more of an idea of what the tech industry can look like and potential careers, as well as giving them the confidence to know that they'll be successful in them and that they'll have adequate support from many people, women of color and allies included, to help them be successful.
That has to be an amazing experience for you personally.
It is. Just seeing, girls just like really just geeking out and like not caring about what anyone thinks and just excelling and thriving. It's really wonderful to see that, and especially at a young age, because, whether you realize it or not, girls in general are sometimes kind of pushed out of STEM careers for cultural reasons or for, deeply held beliefs that tech careers only belong to certain people. And so to see, girls of color just really getting excited about robotics or, making their own programs, it's just a wonderful sight to see.
Your book deals a lot with mentoring and establishing a foundation for girls and women to explore the tech world. Can you tell us a little bit more about your book and how that mentoring is an important aspect?
Sure. So the book is written in mind with women of color and girls of color who are thinking or contemplating careers in the technology field, but perhaps aren't entirely sure where they fit or how do they get started. And a lot of it is based off of my own transition from working in financial services to coming into IBM. So thinking about broadly where you can go in technology, the industries that you can go into beyond just coding, and then how do you prepare for your career? How do you get that resume? How do you network? How do you find that mentor? And then dealing with issues that have caused women of color to typically leave the tech industry, be it bias, microaggressions, and things of that nature. I talk a lot about mentoring because mentoring isn't just a skills transfer. It's someone who is a supporter for you as you're navigating what can be challenging at times. I've been lucky to have a number of mentors, not only just give me, the knowledge of their skills and experience, but really being a support system through difficult times, whether academically or personally or, at work. You need people, you need to feel like you have people that are in your corner, that will advocate for you and kind of be your cheerleader, when things really hit the fan and you're just not sure that you have the will or the strength to keep going. So I'm a very big advocate that you need mentors regardless of where you are in your career.
I think a really cool thing you do in your book is you take down the umbrella term mentor and break it down into mentorship, coaching, and sponsorship, and how each one of those are necessary and important to help people grow and learn.
Yeah, definitely that mentoring is a very important component, but specifically when it comes to women of color in technology and frankly in a number of other fields where they're still underrepresented, you need that person that's going to be able to use their resources, their social capital, their privilege to really advocate for you and get you to the next step of your career. Very often what will happen is women of color will get over mentored. You'll have like 9, 10 mentors who are probably giving you really great insights and really great advice, but you're not finding that your career is moving in the direction that you like. And sometimes it's a matter of someone really going out of their way and saying, hey, look at this person. You need to be paying attention to this person.
Can you explain for those who haven't read your book yet, what sponsorship and coaching, how they differ from the mentorship?
Yeah, so when I think of mentoring, it can be a formal or informal relationship. And again, there's skills transfer. You're kind of talking about your experiences and helping them to kind of mold what their skill sets are and how they're going to progress through their career. I feel that coaching is very limited in scope, where you're concentrating perhaps on 1 or 2 key skill areas for a definitive amount of time together. And sponsorship is a little bit like mentorship, but this person's really going out of their way to put you in the right experiences, to advocate that you get promotions, to really put you in front of other people who will help you in your career and propel you forward so that you don't feel stagnant, that you're actually moving towards something. And I tell my mentees that sponsorship is something that you can't just readily ask for, because a sponsor is taking on a little bit of risk,
right,
advocating for you. So the last thing they would want to say is, oh, Stacy, you're doing, amazing. I'm going to put you in front of this exec. And then Stacy meets with said exec and he's like, why? Why did you, why did you think that Stacy was ready? So they take on a lot of personal and business risk when they're advocating for people. So it's almost something that you have to kind of demonstrate and earn for a sponsor to feel comfortable to take that level of risk and move forward for you.
I think that's really important, how each one has a different purpose and each one has a different scope, which I think if you're looking for a mentor, instead of looking for someone who will do all these things, it might be helpful to actually say, oh, this is what I really need right now. I look for a mentor for this, or I need to work on this skill, so I need to find someone now who can help me with that. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah.
Because you may just be starting out in your career and you're still trying to define direction. So perhaps a mentor or a coach would be far more appropriate. Or maybe you've been doing what you've been doing for a good 3-4 years and you're not seeing the momentum that you'd like, or you know that there is a position or something that you want to do. And while a mentor can be there for perhaps moral support, the mentor may not necessarily have the capital or the resources or the kind of the persuasion to kind of move that needle for you. So you definitely have to seek out someone else.
In what you've observed working in tech the last few years and volunteering at different events and just being exposed to the industry, do you feel that there are a lot of companies who are starting to put systems in place to help make companies more diverse, or to help younger people who are coming into a career who don't have a skill, or people who might be changing careers completely like you did, get into the industry and really start to nurture their careers? Or does it feel more like people are kind of thrown in and they have to figure it out by themselves?
That's a great question. So I'll be honest in saying I think before this year, I definitely felt more of the latter,
Mhm.
where many women and people of color just kind of have to fumble a little bit. Some companies are better than others when it comes to diversity and inclusion programs, as well as business resource groups. But even still, there's work to be done. With the unfortunate events that happened this year with George Floyd and a number of other shootings, I think it really kind of brought like a very stark mirror to many people about, well, why is this still happening? And not just in the sense of our police systems and you know social justice, but we've talked about this in tech a lot, that we don't have enough women, we don't have enough people of color, and we talk about all the reasons why, and yet the numbers still look bad. The numbers are still not perhaps where they should be. So I do feel that, for as unfortunate as some of these things have happened, I do think it forced a lot of people to have a lot of hard, difficult conversations about, well, what am I doing, or what more could I be doing towards this end, so that we're not constantly having this discussion with no meaningful outcomes and no meaningful consequences coming out of it. So I do think it is getting better. There is still work to be done, but I feel a little bit more confident that we'll be closer to where we'd like to be now than I did last year.
Well, that's good. But progress
Exactly.
is great.
Yes.
Unfortunately, I hate at this point that we still need to have progress. I think I read in your book, let me quickly switch over here, that, where is it? Sorry.
Oh, no worries.
That the number of Black women in technical professions declined by 13% over a 12-year period. That shocked me, because I thought we were at this point where at least the numbers were growing incrementally. I mean, we're still not in like over 30% or something with having women of color in the tech fields, right? I think it's still below 30, correct?
It is. And what's happening is, so yes, there are more women of color, in different groups that are coming in, perhaps in years past.
Mm-hmm.
But what's really frightening for Black women especially is that there are more Black women leaving technology than they are coming in. And it's indicative to the fact that, yes, we may be addressing recruiting, we may be making these programs, but when it comes to the workplace, what are we doing to make it inclusive, not diverse, inclusive? And there's a very big difference, because inclusivity makes you feel like you can bring your best self to your job, and that everybody wants that and it's valued, versus it's diverse for diversity's sake. Like you're just checking off a box, for some reason. And as a Black person, as a person of color, you feel that. You definitely feel when you are, part of a marketing ploy, or you're doing something obligatory for somebody else. So I think that that's part of the conversation that we need to have about bringing more women of color in technology. We have to start looking at the environments that we have in place, and are we really making them feel valued? Are we making them feel welcome? Are we doing everything that we can to make them feel like they want to stay?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I heard a portion of a podcast interview that you did. I can't remember who you did it with, but you gave an example where you were leaving your job and the person told you that you were the affirmative action hire.
Yes.
Like, how can they expect you to want to stay if they're oh, you're our token Black person? Yeah.
And what made that particular instance feel worse was that I knew that they didn't want me, like at initially, and it was one of those things where, okay, we respect the skill that you bring, and fine, and then it's like, oh, just so you were forced upon on them, and I'm like, thank you, Captain Obvious. I really
Right.
I think I can figure that out on my own. So but thank you.
So we're hoping that they have learned since you left that they lost an amazing person who contributed so much to their business, and that they really messed up, and hopefully that they will stop doing that and change the culture.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. If they just stop doing that,
right,
that would be fantastic.
That's a simple one not to say.
It's like you could feel however you'd like about me. Just stop doing that one thing.
Right. I heard you also say in an interview that, and I think this was in your book too, that companies who actually invest in diversion and inclusivity actually make more money. Is that true?
That is very, very true. So I often cite the 2018 McKinsey study that studied that particular correlation. And they found that for the hundreds of companies that they interviewed, many of them exceeded their financial expectations because they had diverse and inclusive groups. There's a number of other studies from places like Deloitte, but they basically talk about the fact that you're bringing in a diverse group of people that are bringing different talents, they're bringing different ways of thought, experiences, and you make something really unique when you have more diverse voices at the table versus people who kind of had the same experiences and the same skills and whatnot, and to some extent maybe engaging in groupthink, where you're just kind of rubber stamping it because, oh, such and such said so, and it's not really indicative of what the market is saying that it needs. Mm-hmm. So I mean, I keep saying to people that it's not so much if you're thinking about it from a standpoint of I'm only motivated by hard dollars and cents, then it's a business imperative, and it's really a no-brainer, mm-hmm. if you ask me, that this is something that you should take seriously. And I also feel that, especially in technology, as we're becoming far more dependent on it for just about everything, we need diverse teams at the table so that we're not further marginalizing certain communities. Yeah. So when I constantly bring up artificial intelligence, because we are using that now, and we're using it for some pretty big life-altering things. So things like jobs, credit,
Mhm.
housing. And when you have people who are kind of programming their own biases into these models, the unintended effect, whether you like it or not, is that those marginalized communities are going to continue to be marginalized in a really profound way.
Mhm.
So it's not even such a business imperative for the bottom line. It's also a social imperative, so that we're not making life worse for people who already have had it, pretty hard.
Right. Um, I think that it's just staggering to me the amount of people who don't understand how much their own biases affect their actions, and that their actions then have consequences that ripple and ripple and ripple and ripple. I think your book is a great starting point, not just for people who want to have a career in tech, but also for businesses who are trying to understand the actual issue at hand. I think you break it down so well, the different problems people face, the different challenges, but the benefits, and give a full spectrum about how a tech career could be great. And I think that if businesses read your book, so all businesses, just go read your book, just read Suzanne's book, it's amazing.
Thank you for the plug.
It doesn't, and you don't have to be a tech business. That's the thing. I think there's so much about your book that can be applied to any business. We have so much going on in the publishing industry over the last 8 months, 9 months, about systemic racism being highlighted, and unfair practices. And I think that every company, every business just really needs to take a look at themselves and start. And you got to start with yourself to do that. Knowing where you had blind spots or things you've never even thought about. Talking to people who have experienced issues in a workplace, like those exit interviews, use them to actually find out why they're leaving and how you can make your culture
Exactly.
better.
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the head. And what I've been really advocating right now for people who talk about, well, I'm serious about this, and I want to be help, and I want to be helpful to people, and give them a voice. I highly, highly, highly advocate people learning how to become better allies and whether that's in tech or any other industry, you know, educating yourself, like really talking and understanding, like just really trying to understand with empathy what these communities, have had to face
Mhm.
on a regular basis. So, like, trust me, these issues that came up this year with George Floyd's, killing, these are not new. These are these are not these have been going on for quite some time. And in fact, I remember commenting to someone. I was around when the Rodney King riots
Mhm.
happened, and it alarms me that it's still
Yeah.
we're still having this conversation in 2020. So really trying to understand the struggles of these groups, educating yourself, and then really getting uncomfortable and questioning status quo, using your privilege and your resources to advance marginalized people and communities, like it. And I make no bones to people that go that route. Being an ally is hard.
Mhm.
It is not easy. It's not a one-time thing. But if you're someone who is wearing the ally flag, that comes with a very specific set of responsibilities, and you have to be willing to do that.
Yeah, it goes back to the same kind of thing with sponsorship. You are is putting your neck out there, but it's for a valuable cause. You are
Exactly.
taking the chance that someone might hear what you say and react negatively, which could impact you, but everybody else is being impacted negatively. Like, we have to change it so that people are universally being treated as equals, and there's equity and parity, and that things like the gap in wages is addressed. That's huge. I think that it's important that all of us, especially for people like me, who is not a woman of color, that we actually educate ourselves and learn that to be an ally doesn't mean, oh yes, I am anti-racist. It actually means doing the work and stepping out and helping other people.
Exactly. And the thing I also emphasize too is people of color can't do this alone.
Mm-mm.
Because if that were the case, we would not be where we are.
Right.
And so it takes a concerted effort of everyone, and to not treat it as it's someone else's
Mm-hmm.
problem. It's just this part of society's problem. Like that's why we're here.
Mm-hmm.
And why we're having the issues that we are. Like we all have to collectively combat this, and we have to do it together.
And the fact that we live in a country who yesterday celebrated the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment actually becoming part of the United States Constitution, like we've gotten to a point where we know that when people band together, we can create change. We just actually have to do it. We have to put in the work.
Yeah, and it's not going to be easy, but I tell people, I'm like, trust me, having conversations about race and equity and parity and inclusion, like it's hard for me too.
Mm-hmm.
And for days that I just kind of want to hide and watch bad shows on Netflix and just not be a part of that conversation, that's really not an option. It is my responsibility too. And as a Black woman, it's like it's brought to me whether I like it or not. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what I put to people who are allies. Like, trust me, we've been carrying this burden for a while. So just putting it in perspective.
Yes. And I hope
we can. Oh no, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I know. I was just and to your point, we've done so many amazing things together. We can continue to do amazing things together. We just have to always remember that.
I think that's something that in today's age is being missed a lot, that when we do actually come together, and not as a token, we're all in this together kind of phrase, but when we actually do listen to each other and learn from each other and develop our empathy and not just let it turn into selfishness and narcissism, that we can actually make great things happen in the world and make the world a better place, not just for us, but for future generations. I look at all the amazing new programs that are out there for girls to get them into STEM. And it's so exciting. Like as soon as Rosie Revere Engineer was written, I got it for my niece, and it's one of her favorite books. Introducing the idea in visual ways for kids, especially, that yes, we've always said you can do whatever you put your mind to. You can be anything you want, but actually giving them examples to look at and see, this person is amazing. This person did that. This person, and trying to incorporate people of all different colors, races, nationalities, ethnicities, sexual orientations or identities, and giving that diverse spectrum from an early age can really help. Sorry.
Oh yeah, no. That's, I think you hit it on the head. I was actually having a conversation about this, that while the book tends to focus on a target reader that's perhaps older, perhaps more end of high school, college age, or career changer. One of the things that why I volunteer as much as I do is being as early as an intervention in their lives as possible, because sadly, especially for girls, but by the time they get to like middle school, for whatever reasons, they're kind of like, oh, I don't know, and I'm not good at math and science, and some girls have have supportive parents and programs and everything else. And, some girls don't. Some girls don't have access to those resources or those organizations. And being involved as early and often with them gives them that sense of confidence that, okay, I can do this. Mm-hmm. Like this is someone that looks like me, that's been through these experiences. I can do this. This is totally something that I can do versus this is something for somebody else. This is not me. Like, I'm not good at math. I'm not good at science. Like, yeah, no, I'm not going to do this. Even though, like, secretly they like it. They secretly like it, but for whatever reasons, they're just kind of deterred from, pursuing that full bore.
There was a statistic that went around a few years ago. I don't know if the statistic's still the same, but it said that I don't remember. It just left my head. Oh. We'll come back to that one. It was going to be a good point too. It was
I do have a statistic from the book that basically said that when young girls were interacting with role models who had similar experiences that looked like them, their success in academics and actually pursuing a STEM career increased by 17%.
Wow.
So when they had that's why I try as hard as I can, and I encourage others to be present and to be visible, because it has more impact than you think. And it gives someone hope that this is something that they can do for themselves.
Mm-hmm. This is a different statistic that hopefully by the end of this little intro, I'll actually remember. That men, I think this is right. Don't yell at me if I'm wrong. But I think that says that when men are applying for a job and they look at the preferred qualifications, if they don't match everything, like if they match like 60 or 70%, they'll still apply for the job. But if women look at it and if they're not able to check off 100% of the things that the employer is looking for, they don't apply. And I think there are two things in that. I think for some, it might be a lack of confidence. But I think another thing is the perception that a potential employer or a potential admissions counselor or a potential whatever we can substitute here, that potential person is not looking for me. They're not looking for what I can bring. They're looking for these things, and I don't have that exactly. So I'm not going to waste my time if they're not going to look at me. And I think we need to have a mental shift for the person who's applying for something, but also for the people who are doing the hiring or the admissions or anything, because if you're enabling a culture where people think that you won't look at them, that's something wrong with your culture. And if you have that limiting belief that they're not going to look at you because of who you are and that who you are may not be good enough, you're not going to get where you need to go and where you have the potential to go and where your skills can be valued. There's so many ways that women are taught from a very early age that if we don't have the perfect qualifications or the perfect life experience, or not necessarily perfect, but what that experience we want to go to next is stereotypically looking for, that we can't succeed. And I think that's so wrong.
I agree. And full disclosure, I'm guilty of the same thing. I'm like,
oh no, there's so many jobs I've not applied to because I'm like, no, I don't know Illustrator. No.
Yeah. I'm just like, nope, I've only meet 9 of the 10 things that they're asking for. So I'm not, and it's just this really like horrible, kind of mindset. And I had to kind of really break myself out of that, because I'm like, you're limiting yourself so much. And my thing with most guys is like, they're just like, I'm just gonna apply. I'm like, I'm just screw
Yeah.
it. Like,
Yeah.
if they say no, they say no. Like,
Yeah.
it's such a different mind shift. But you are absolutely right about how employers are kind of doing their practices. So I do talk about applicant tracking systems in the book to emphasize, like, yes, you need to have, like, you need to make sure that you don't have anything that the ATS is going to disqualify you for. That being said, you know, the kind of things that are being programmed in sometimes are like, really? So
Yeah.
the most recent thing that I saw, it was a tech job that was being advertised, and it was asking for people to have 12 years of experience in this particular technology area. The technology area in question has only been around for 6 years. I was like, so explain to me how this works.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
so I think we can do a little better and be a little bit more holistic in how we do these practices, so that we're not excluding great candidates for ridiculous reasons. I also think it's important that and I talked about this in an interview, looking beyond your box of what a perfect candidate looks like. A perfect candidate may be, you know, going to a boot camp. A perfect candidate may be doing an associate's degree at a community college. A perfect candidate may never have gone to college, but has a wealth of technical experience and probably would be, you know, best for your team, versus or going to historically Black college or university. The point of that being is that what I have found in the tech industry is that some employers just tend to focus on particular feeder schools. But if we're talking about diversity and inclusion, you've got to expand that pie a little bit of where you're sourcing candidates. And if you're not getting the quality candidates that you'd like for whatever reasons, nothing is stopping you from partnering with academic institutions or doing your own programs. Like, believe me, there are nonprofits that will bend over backwards to work with you so that you're sourcing quality candidates. So I do challenge employers and recruiters to think differently.
Definitely. I can't tell you how many job descriptions I see these days that say you have to have, it's for an entry level position, but it says you have to have 3 years of experience. Most people can't afford to go do unpaid internships for 3 years in order to get that experience. And that's some way that employers are already taking opportunity that they might have an amazing employee. They're hurting themselves that way. And then
Exactly.
also, like, when you bring someone in when they're new, you get to mold them. You get to teach them. Like, they don't come in with like all these bad practices or
I know.
that you have to redo. That's a lot of work and time and money spent in retraining people. Like, when you get these people when they're young and hungry, oh yeah, you can mold them.
The sky's the limit. I'm like, how can you not? And I will applaud New York in that it made it mandatory that you have to pay interns. So I was like, thank goodness, because New York is hard enough on its own, let alone like, oh, I'm going to work for free for 80 hours. Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Joan put up that this happens in publishing with editors. If an editor writes to a writer, please submit again, the men will, but the women see it as a rejection. So that goes back to that sexist divide with the views. I know for us, we, and Joan actually started our writing contest. We have an annual writing contest, which we'll be launching on September 1st. But we do a blind submission. So there's nothing on there that indicates your name or who you are in anything except for what you have written. That way there's no bias that can be intrinsically put in just by seeing your name. So
Oh,
Things like that.
that's fantastic. Yeah, and I for strides that are made in the tech industry, there are definitely moments. I mean, it is male dominated, and it almost feels there are times where you have to like prove your worth and your technical acumen,
Mhm.
and hold your ground with some people. I mean, I will be happy to say that like my experience isn't like that all the time.
Yeah.
I have a very fantastic team, incredibly supportive, manager. And just a quick thing on him. When I joined his team, I had gotten offer to write the book from Wiley, and he's just like, "Hey, nice to meet you. What's going on?" like just bringing him up to speed about like everything that was going. But he was tremendously supportive during the writing of the book, and he's been a very fierce advocate for me at IBM, and I I couldn't be more thankful for him and the rest of my team, because they are the reason why I've been able to achieve success and to become a better technical professional.
Well, I think having that experience, like you came from a different career completely. And so I don't know what your first experiences were like transitioning into a new career, but having someone within a certain time frame of when you started be that kind of an ally and advocate for you has to be incredibly not just rewarding, but also I can't come up with the word I want, but it has to feel good.
it
It has to make you feel good about your future. It has
it
to really,
does.
it gives you that like idea that there are people here who believe in me. And so I might not be stuck at this level forever, that there might be room for growth and potentially promotions and things like that.
Yeah, so I've actually told my manager as such, because to your point, I worked in financial services, and I mean, so I've worked for a bit,
Mhm.
and he was the first manager that was a not just the person that's pushing the paper and sending spreadsheets, but he actually showed personal interest and is a true leader in every sense of the word. And in the entire time that I've been working, and I've had many types of bosses, male, female, of different persuasions. That was the first time I ever felt like someone had my back
Mhm.
and really wanted me to be successful. Um, so his name is Kirk Yamatani. So and just in case anyone wants to look him up and say like, good job. But yeah,
What LinkedIn for?
yeah, it's a wonderful feeling, and it's something that I honestly want for every woman in tech. Not that be the rule, not the
Yeah.
exception.
To circle back to transitioning to a new career, um, when you first got the idea that you wanted to go into tech, what did you do to begin the process? What was your first step? What made you like be like, okay, this is it. I'm not just thinking about this. This is not something I think I could be good at, but this is what I really want to do, and I'm going to do this right now.
Yeah, I've actually been interested in technology since I was a kid. I was the person that was playing on the computer till 2 a.m. And anytime my dad brought in gadgets, I would play with them, see how they work. Sometimes
Did
I'd
you take
open them
apart your
up.
vacuum cleaner? Yeah.
No, not the vacuum cleaner, but I did take apart a TV. I My dad and I actually set a TV on fire. So we'll never do that
Supportive,
again.
supportive father. He wanted you to grow in your STEM interest.
Yeah, I think my mom would have been like, that's a little too supportive. But no, I've always had the interest. Unfortunately, there were a lot of things in growing up in my household, and then when I, personally just trying to figure out what I'm doing with my life. I did write about this a little bit in the book, but my mother had been ill for much of my childhood, and my dad was tasked with taking care of not only me but 7 other women in different life stages. So it was rough, and the mindset wasn't necessarily about long-term career development, but just more of survival and getting through. And that carried with me for a while, and that's kind of how I ended up in financial services in the first place. So after however many jobs in financial services, I just got to a point where I was like, okay, I can't do this anymore. Like, yes, this pays well, but I wasn't engaged. Not necessarily the most fulfilling line of work, and you know how people get about money, like it's usually they're either very, very happy or they're very, very mad. There's not really an in between. So I said, I owe it to myself to figure this out, if this is something that I can do, because I've always loved it, but I wasn't entirely sure where I wanted to be. I had never coded like professionally, and I had never had any like real professional experience other than just tinkering around a computer. So that's when I decided to go back to school and kind of explore my options a little bit as to what that could look like. And I was really lucky because the program that I was in at Northwestern was kind of a mix of different things. So I got the opportunity to learn about cybersecurity, a little bit of programming, information security, and human computer interaction. But I also had the opportunity to kind of improve my communication skills. So taking courses like public speaking and argumentation and persuasion. And just like it all really helped, because not only was I learning that skill, those foundational technical skills, but I was also able to communicate them. Like, I was able to communicate complex ideas to people, regardless of where they were in the spectrum. And I really enjoyed it. I mean, it was hard. Like, it was a long 4 years. It's a very long 4 years to doing that, between working and studying, and and some courses were harder than others. Like, I very distinctly remember the first time I had to do like a large scale program for my Java class, and I remember it very well. I woke up Saturday morning, 8 o'clock, hammering through, and I didn't leave really until like close to 10-11 p.m. And my husband came in the room at one point, and he said, yeah, like, you didn't say actual words, you just grunted a little bit at me. Like, and you seemed very intense, so I wanted to leave you alone. I'm like, that was a good call. So, but while I was doing that, I was also doing hackathons. I was going to boot camps. I was doing volunteer service. I was doing a number of things to get an understanding of what it was exactly I wanted to do and apply that skill in some way. And that's how I ended up getting an internship at IBM in technical sales, which led to the full-time position that I'm at now. So that's how all of this came about. But yeah, I didn't exactly know what I wanted to do. And that's why I wanted to give myself the time to really think about that a little bit deeply and holistically, and to meet people and where I think I'm going to be the most passionate and where I can do the most good.
I think that's a big thing that is good about our time right now. Unlike our father or our parents and grandparents and great grandparents who got a job and maybe stuck in either that job or the same career line for the rest of their professional lives. Now there's an emphasis on actually doing something you love, and figuring out where you can take your skills and your passion and devote them to that you'll be happy. And I think it's a great opportunity that we're living in right now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'll be honest, like when I told people what I was doing, they were just kind of like, "What, you've got a job and
Right. Yeah.
it pays
The
rent?"
security
So
yeah.
like happiness is overrated. Like, okay.
Right.
Fabulous.
What made you decide to write the book?
So that's a interesting continuation of that story. I will be very candid in that I did not set out to become a writer. So in December of 2018, I received the CompTIA Rising Star of the Year award. And
I mispronounced it when I introduced you, CompTIA.
oh, do not, no worries, no worries. And they did a write-up on my experience for their magazine, and the acquisitions editor at Wiley happened to read it, and he reached out to me on LinkedIn, and he said, I'm really, impressed with your background and your story. Have you ever thought about potentially writing a book about your experiences? So I've said this before, but it is definitely true. The first two things that went through my head was like, okay, first, this is a scam. Like, it's like he's like, I'm gonna respond, and then he's gonna ask for my social security number and my credit card. I'm like, okay, so like, no, like, so I did look at his profile and like, okay, this is an actual person, and it seems on the up and up, and so we contacted each other. And the second thing was that all through my mind, I'm thinking, okay, this guy's gonna come to his senses and be like, what is going on? But yeah, he was actually incredibly helpful in, kind of talking through my experiences, kind of the things that I wanted to kind of like really, really talk about, and especially about bringing more women of color in the industry. One of the things that I started realizing as I was kind of going through, trainings and, events and everything was that I was definitely in the minority, even, at women in technology kind of events and programs. And so it was really important for me to give not only the reality of what it's like, but to give hope too, because for all of their challenges, and I think that was the most difficult part of the book, like balancing my love for the industry versus the realities of the industry. But all of that being said, the joys and the benefits that have come from working in tech far outweigh, the challenges that I've had. And I wanted to instill that for every person that wrote the book. So that's how it came about. And I know that that's not something that generally happens.
That's a nonfiction author's dream.
Yeah, like
write me a book.
So full disclosure, my mother-in-law is actually a writer. So, so it was like, yeah, I get the gravity of like,
yeah,
this doesn't just happen.
What was the process of writing like for you? Do you like to write, or was it miserable?
It was challenging. It definitely wasn't miserable.
Very diplomatic. Very diplomatic.
Yeah, but I mean, I will be, so not having been a writer, in the traditional sense, it definitely required me to kind of adjust how I usually write, because I usually write, business correspondence, or I'm writing reports, and not necessarily writing, not necessarily writing to persuade a younger audience to kind of, pivot or choose a tech career. So it definitely required a shift in thinking a little bit. But I was up to that challenge. I think the most difficult thing, in all honesty, was timing. So not having an understanding of how the process usually works, I set a very aggressive timeline. And in retrospect, I probably should have given myself far more buffer than I did, because my job requires me, well, before the pandemic, it requires me to travel quite a bit and, interact with clients and, do all these things. And I really had to find the time to write. So most mornings, I was up from like 4 to 7, just I had to do it. and then if
That's
there were
great.
like,
Good for you. That's the time of day I want to be sleeping.
well, I think what being in financial services helped me in that regard, because you have to get up early. But yeah, there were days where I just like, and then for the days that I had to travel, like I just did it on the plane, train, like you just had to get it done. So I think that's the only thing that I would have done differently, is like, now that I understand the process a little better, just be like, oh, I can have this to you in, a month, and yeah. And they're like, oh, this is really hard. It's just really hard. and in all honesty, having gone through this process, I have a very deep respect for people that do this for a living, and constantly and consistently. This is not easy. It's very, very hard. And the market, and now that I've understand publishing a little better, it's like, wow, this is huge.
What's it been like launching your book during a pandemic? Like, your book came out right before the pandemic really went into full swing, but that's got to be difficult.
It was, I won't lie, it was rough. So before everything kind of reached to where it was, we were planning on having a book signing at a local Barnes and Noble, and it didn't happen. We ended up canceling it. And then there was a period where we weren't sure if the book was actually even going to ship, because the warehouse that it was in had closed, due to COVID. However, we were fortunate in that the copies of the book that had already been pre-ordered had already started going out. It was like the last book printed. Okay. And it was definitely challenging. So I think when we first started looking at the marketing and the promotion, we thought a lot about in-person events, and using social media as kind of a secondary means to do something. But no one's going anywhere anytime soon, and the bookstores only just started opening up, fairly recently. So it required me to try to have like another education, so to speak, of, okay, well, how do we position this book, virtually, and it meant just learning a new set of skills, or like learning about digital collaboration. I had never really used Zoom like up until like this point. Like I've always used like other video conferencing, but I'm almost a Zoom pro at this point. I know all the tricks of the trade. I know like what earbuds to use, and to always have a wired connection. And the fun thing has been like having my husband and I working out the schedule of when you should be in the room and when you need to get out. And so just leveraging a lot of social media. And I have to say, like, it isn't what I necessarily envisioned at first, but it has been just as rewarding, if not more so. I've been really blessed to have one-on-one conversations with readers of the book who felt, really inspired by what was written, and to be able to give, my own advice on how to start in certain areas of tech and connecting them with people. It's just been fantastic. So it wasn't what I was expecting, but I'm deeply, deeply happy and honored nonetheless.
I'm so happy for you.
Thank you.
Congratulations on the book.
Thank you.
I have one more thing I want to ask you. What are some ways that you recommend we work to help and support girls and women so that they feel like they can do whatever they want, live their lives, find their dreams?
Yeah, I think it's really important to treat everybody as an individual. One of the things that I'm really big about is intersectional feminism, in that while we all may be women, we don't all occupy the space in the same way because of our race, our experiences, our age, and so on. So I think it's important that when you're talking to understand, to like really understand the person and not like make blanket assumptions about where this person wants to go or where they want to be. Listen to their hopes, their dreams, their struggles, and if you find that there is a place where you can offer assistance and help, please by all means like do so. And if there's not, you can say, but I know someone that can help you, like connect them, like you not everyone is going to have the answers for everybody, but if we can share resources, if we can share knowledge, share people, I think it goes a long, long way.
I think that's lovely. If anyone has any questions, please go ahead and put them in the Q&A right now.
I see from Joan. Hi, Joan. I'm happy to meet you too.
Joan asked if you're open to Q&A. Yes. Okay. Do you know about the Bleecker project? They are sending mentors to work with startups founded by people of color.
Joan, I wasn't familiar with that, but I definitely want to take a look at that after the call tonight. I think that's great. And we need more mentors and people willing to give their time and their thought leadership to others so that they can grow. So that's awesome.
Joan, it says you have a few questions. That was only one, so please, please write more, Joan. And then your email address. And yes, Joan's new novel. This is her first novel, and I want to say it's Exposure or Exposure. I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, Joan. It takes place in Silicon Valley startup. So.
Nice.
Oh, extreme. I'm sorry. Extreme. I knew it was an E. I apologize. Extreme. While people think if they have any other questions, I'm going to quickly pop up a picture of the book so you can go forth and buy it and give it to everyone you know, every company you know. And then I will quickly just drop a link in the chat once I stop this share for a link to Bookshop, where we do have the book in our members books list. So if you want to check it out there, you can. If anyone has any questions, if you think of later, I will put up your contact stuff here. Back and forth.
Yes, please. More than happy to talk with people. I think the wonderful thing about having to be able to do this is being able to have these conversations and do some amazing things together. So I definitely welcome people contacting me anytime.
That's great. I've loved talking to you. I am so happy to to have an experience to put with the name. You're not just a member of the New York City chapter on a list to me now. It's so nice to actually have this connection. That's one of the great things I love about the WNBA, especially since the pandemic. We've actually been able to interact more across the country and to actually have chapters and national interact, and everybody's getting more exposure to all of our amazing, incredibly brilliant and smart and dedicated members. So we thank you for joining us. Oh, we do have a question. Oh, Joan says, thank you for your beautiful talk.
Thank you for your time.
And Crystal says, would you be interested in being a ghostwriter? Ooh.
Possibility, yeah. I always try to look at, any opportunities that come my way. So yeah, be interested in talking.
All right. So I thank you so much for coming. This has been lovely. You're lovely to talk to, and you have so much information that I've been very happy to talk to you about and share. And I hope everybody goes out and buys your book, and that everybody gives you all the promotions in the world going into your career.
Thank you so much, Julie. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you, everyone, for your time this evening. And again, please feel free to reach out to me anytime. I'd love to hear from you.
And if you want to rewatch this or share this interview with anybody else, the recording will be made available as of tomorrow. Once I get it up on YouTube, you'll be able to share it. And it is also currently streaming to our Facebook page, so you can also share from there. So tell everybody you know to help the people in their lives or the people that they meet, and find ways that we can support each other and we can all grow.
Absolutely.
And if you are not a member of the WNBA, we encourage you to become one. You can find us right here at WNBA-books.org. We do have the Bookwoman newsletters, which tell more information about upcoming events, author talks, panels, workshops, and then all sorts of interesting bookish news. So we hope you'll sign up for our emails and get to know more about our organization. So thank you so much. Thank you all for attending, and I hope you have a great night.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.